William Hill sponsors Martin vs. Joshua on Sky Sports Box Office.
Radio Raheem here with Colin Hart. It is an honor to meet you and talk to you. He's an award-winning journalist, Hall of Fame journalist. The first fight you covered was an Ali fight and fight of the century.
No, the first fight in America was an Ali fight.
Those are the only ones that count.
Okay. I won't argue with that.
I asked you over here not only because I wanted to talk to you, but because we've got a heavyweight title on the line this Saturday, and there's nobody better to talk to about heavyweight fights than Colin Hart.
Right.
So knowing that we're looking at a guy who's had only 15 fights, but is maybe one of the most popular boxers in the division right now, what do you see in him that makes him special, I mean, if anything?
Well, he's got all the tools. He's got the power, he's got the punch, he's got the stamina, he's got the dedication, so he's got everything going for him. The only thing I will say is that I don't think he should be fighting for the heavyweight championship of the world just yet. I would much have preferred to see him have at least 2 or 3 more fights and fight for the world title this time next year. That doesn't mean I don't think he's going to win it, because if you win it, then who is he going to fight? Who is he going to defend against? The IBF will be picking his opponents for him. So that's why I think he should perhaps have waited a little bit longer. But he's young and ambitious. The opportunity came along, so I can understand why he wanted to take it right now.
Now, what do you think of this practice of guys getting titles, like you say, and having mandatory challenges, but buying those guys off for the bigger money or the more fan-favorited fights?
Well, you know, professional boxing is about money. That's what it is all about. As Chris Eubank Jr. said only last week, you can play at football, rugby and cricket, but you don't play at boxing. It is a business. And so the name of the game is get as much money as you can while you can. So I don't blame him for that. As we've found out recently, it's a very dangerous business as well. So these kids who, you know, get enormous sums of money, they put their life on the line.
This heavyweight division is a little disjointed. With Tyson Fury having beaten Klitschko, he's kind of considered the heavyweight champion, but there's more belts out there than really need to be. So if looking at that division, who do you consider to be the heavyweight champion, and how can we keep this division a little more succinct, more streamlined, so we know who the title holder is?
Well, we've been saying that for many years. At one time, up to about 18 months ago, the heavyweight division was moribund. Vladimir Klitschko had the belts. His fights weren't exciting. He's a great technician, but he's got no charisma. So Mr. Fury comes along, and to everybody's surprise, did what he said he would do and lifted the title off Klitschko's shoulders, and he's opened up the division. We've now got a far more interesting heavyweight division, but I was spoiled to death, don't forget. I covered the heavyweight division when we called it the golden years of heavyweights. Ali, Frazier, Foreman, Holmes. Right. I don't want to go on and on and on. They were great heavyweights. Now, of course, we've got Deontay Wilder, who's a very exciting fighter, unbeaten, tremendous puncher. We've got Fury, who must be considered the heavyweight champion of the world because he beat Klitschko. And then, of course, we hope we have Joshua as well. So it is, and we've got David Haye in the wings. So it's opened up, and we can look forward for the next year or two to some very exciting fights.
A seeming natural matchup would be Deontay Wilder, and assuming that Anthonthy Joshua was able to get that IBF title, the two of them should clash soon. How would you assess that matchup?
Before I assess that, I want to see what Joshua looks like against Martin. I mean, he could get knocked out. Let's face it. It's a bit of a risk that he's taking after having so few fights. So if he comes through the Martin fight and how he wins, then we can assess how he would look against Wilder. At the moment, the fight I want to see, because it would really and truly unify the heavyweight championship, would be Fury and Wilder. But Wilder's got a tough fight. He's going to Moscow to fight Potemkin, and he is dangerous, particularly on the home soil. Potemkin is a good heavyweight.
Now, if I can drop you down in weight divisions almost 100 pounds and take you to really the fighters of our era. It hasn't been the heavyweight division, as you say, even though Klitschko's reigned, he hasn't really captured the fans, certainly not in America, their imagination. But Manny Pacquiao and Floyd Mayweather have done that. They've really been the guys that people have been paying attention to. And now that Mayweather's retired, Pacquiao's saying it's his last fight, I'm going to ask you how you assess that era, and of those two guys, who do you think embodies that era in boxing?
Well, Mayweather and Pacquiao could have held their own in any era, in my opinion. Don't forget, I was sport to death again after the heavyweights. I had Leonard, Hagler, Hearns, and Duran, and they fought 9 times, and I covered 7 of those fights. Mayweather would have given all those welterweights and junior middleweights fits, and so would Pacquiao when they were in their prime. As you say, Mayweather has retired, allegedly. I'm still not sure about that. I'm still not sure that he will not come back and break Marciano's record and have a 50th win. Pacquiao, I think, is definitely well past his best, and I fancy Bradley to beat him on April 9. But, as I say, they carried boxing through a very bad heavyweight era. So, boxing got to be grateful to those two. They kept it going. And now, but we've got some very good fighters out of Eastern Europe. I mean, Golovkin, Kovalev, they're tremendous fighters and tremendous punchers. Their English isn't that good, and so therefore they're not promoted in the same way as, so we say, an American fighter would have been, because, as I say, they haven't got the, shall we say, the smarts of an American boxer.
Before I let you go with Mayweather, obviously if he were to come back for one more fight and beat that Marciano record, that's a huge record in boxing. I wonder what you feel about the criticism that's levied at Mayweather for his defensive style. Is that something that you think tarnishes what he's been able to do, or does it enhance what he's been able to do?
Well, it tarnishes it from my point of view, because, I mean, I've always said if he'd fought Sugar Ray Leonard would have beaten him, because Leonard was a far more attacking fighter than Mayweather. Mayweather was one of the best defensive fighters I've ever seen, and I think who ever lived. He was absolutely brilliant, but that doesn't make for a particularly exciting fighter. He did everything he had to do to win, and no more. He didn't go to war with anybody. He was too clever for that. So you've got to hand it to him. Let's face it, boxing's supposed to be the noble art of self-defense, and nobody self-defensed better than Floyd Mayweather.
He calls himself TBE, and of all the people I could speak to, I would love to hear your opinion. Who is the best ever?
Well, I'm old, but I'm not old enough to have covered Sugar Ray Robinson's career. Everybody in boxing, Muhammad Ali, when he was in his prime, always conceded that pound for pound the greatest fighter who ever lived was Sugar Ray Robinson. In my 50-odd years covering boxing, the best fighter pound for pound I've seen in the flesh, for me, was Sugar Ray Leonard. Superb.
Colin Hart. I appreciate the time and the knowledge. I feel smarter for having had this conversation. I hope you will too, and I'll see you at the arena, I'm sure, ringside.
Absolutely, and it's been my pleasure.
Radio Raheem with Colin Hart.